Hey everyone, welcome back to the course. In this video, we're going to talk about the incident responder job role. So we'll talk about what an incident responder is. We'll also talk about some common job responsibilities. We'll talk about some of the skills you might need to be an incident responder. And we'll talk about some common certifications as well as the general salary range. Again, we're focusing on US, UK, and India for those salary ranges. So, what is an incident responder? Well, sometimes you'll see it in job titles as differ. So, digital forensics and incident response. You'll also see job titles such as SOC analyst. So, we at Cybery have a SOC analyst career path. And so, incident responder from SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3, incident responder would fall more in the SOC 2, SOC 3 area, where it might be called SOC 2 or SOC 3 or incident responder. So SOC 1 is kind of that more entry level job role. Incident responder is more of that, hey, I've got a year or so experience. I've seen a lot of logs. I understand things a little bit. And now I'm moving into more of responding to incidents on my own or with my team and also doing some light forensic work as well. And then when we move into SOC 3, that's where we go a little more in depth as a more experienced professional, where we might also be, in addition to actually doing the forensics, et cetera, we might also be training our other teammates on how to do all this stuff. So some common responsibilities for the incident responder, these are people that are going to be monitoring your systems and networks. So again, I talked about analyzing packets, analyzing the data that's coming in, looking for anything malicious, identifying have incidents actually occurred. Might also be doing things like performing security auditing. So performing these audits so that way you can find things before you actually find bad things coming through, right? So you can identify vulnerabilities before they're exploited by an adversary. Performing forensic investigation, as I mentioned, and this can be done with a variety of tools. And depending the organization you work at, you might have a incident response team that comes in, like a third party team that comes in when you have an incident, and you might just be collecting evidence for them and then passing it off to them, or you might actually be part of the team that's analyzing all that evidence. And then also performing risk analysis, kind of going back to that security auditing, identifying what are the vulnerabilities in our systems and how can we actually resolve those or mitigate those before they're exploited by an adversary. So what are some of the common responsibilities of that incident responder? Performing that risk analysis, as we mentioned, performing those security audits, also performing things like intrusion detection. So again, identifying, is there malicious traffic coming through? As I mentioned before, performing that training, right? So training additional staff on our team as well as training other stakeholders. So training executives of saying, this is why we need this X amount of dollar SIM tool like Splunk, for example. This is why we need this. This is why we need to get this other thing. This is why we're doing it this way. So helping them understand. So that all falls under that training umbrella. Documentation, very important in pretty much every job role that you do around IT or cyber. Identifying what the issues are, documenting those. So that way, let's say tomorrow you decide you want to go work at another company, so you resign. We need the people coming in to be able to identify what's been occurring, what are the issues that have been found in the past, and having that data communicated to them, as well as having that data communicated to the different stakeholders so we can get increases in our budget, get salary raises, and all that fun stuff that we like. And also performing the digital forensics, as I mentioned, using a variety of tools and a variety of methods to collect that data and analyze it. So, what are some of the common skills that an incident responder might need to have? Well, you do need to have good background in networking. So, you need to understand how data flows across the network. You need to be able to identify packets of data and identify what's malicious or what belongs, right? What's actually good stuff that should be coming through. You need to be able to identify how to take a grouping of packets and see what's actually occurring, not just, oh, I found a packet, but like what's happening here? What's the pattern here that's going on? You need a strong background in operating systems. So Linux and Windows are the primary ones, but also it's a good idea to have some experience with Mac as well. As I mentioned, packet analysis, right? You need to be able to open up a packet. Now, if you want to be a SOC 1, you can go through the cyber career path and do SOC 1, get trained, and then learn about packet analysis, get some hands on. And then as you evolve your career into SOC 2 and keep going through the training path with Cybery, you can continue on learning about deeper packet analysis and really becoming an expert in that area. You also need to have some experience and skills with SIM tools, which again, I keep self plugging here a little bit, but Sim tools are covered in Cyber's training, so you're going to get some hands-on experience with those as well. You really just need to understand sim tools and what they do. It's good to get experience and kind of specialize in one or a couple of the common ones, but really, at the end of the day, when you go in there for that job interview, you need to understand what a sim tool actually does. Scripting experience is helpful for automation. Right out the gate, your very first job, you probably don't need to have scripting experience, but you do want to learn something like Python at some point because you want to be able to automate a lot of the tasks that you do. So you don't have to look through trillions of packets of data all the time. You can have your script running and it pulls out the things that you really want to look at. Packet capturing tools. So these like Wireshark, for example, you want to know the flags that you can use. You want to be the filters you can use. You want to understand what you're looking at when you look at the dashboard in Wireshark or something using something like TCP dump at the command line. You want to understand what you're actually looking at and understanding backup processes for organizations. So if there is a breach or some kind of attack and you need to back up, so for example, if there's a ransomware attack and you need to be able to access the backups to clean the system and then restore from backups, you need to understand how to actually perform a backup, right? And how to install from a backup. So that's why it's important to have that skill set of being able to understand backups and the backup process and understanding some forensic tools. Again, right out of the gate, SOC 1, not a huge thing that you need to have right out the bat of having forensic tool skill set. But as you evolve your career, you do want to get experience with different forensic tools and understanding how they work and how to use the best one for the particular situation. Some of the common search you might see out there across the gamuts, right? So across SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3 slash incident responder. Security Plus is kind of the de facto cert to get even that SOC 1 analyst. It's kind of expected that you'll have that entry level cert. GSEC is one from GIAC. It's a little more expensive, but usually if your organization's paying for that, that's when you'll get that one. GCIH, another one from GIAC. That's the incident handler one. Again, incident handler ones and also the ECU console incident handler one, these are ones that typically you'll be working at the organization and they'll pay for it, or you can pay out of pocket if you want. But just know that these are usually a couple $1,000s for the training, at least. And then on top of that, you have the cost of the certification usually. So just keep that in mind. Those are pretty expensive. Most people get Security Plus from CompTIA, and that's the first one that they get as they're evolving their career. When you move into more of the SOC 2, SOC 3, you might see some people also getting the Computer Hacking Forensic Investigator certification. That's one from EC Council. And then also sometimes it's like a SOC 2 or SOC 3, you might see people getting the Certified Ethical Hacker cert or SOC 2, SOC 3. And I'm using those terms interchangeably with incident handler or incident responder. So CEH is another one you might see people getting so they can understand how a criminal hacker thinks. So what's kind of the general salary range for an incident responder, SOC analyst? What's the range? So in the US, it's generally going to be about 60 to about 130,000 plus or more. So that's going from the gamut of a SOC 1 analyst around that 50, 60,000 a year range all the way up to the SOC 3 or incident responder with experience, you can be making 130 plus or 130,000 plus in your salary here in the US. And then in the UK and India, you see those salary ranges as well. I do want to mention that if you work in the US area in the critical infrastructure space, you can typically expect a little higher entry level salary than your more general SOC. So, for example, if you can get in critical infrastructure, and it's kind of tough to do sometimes, but if you can get in there, you might look at an entry level range in the 60 to even up to like $80,000 a year range. So, a quick quiz question here for you: which of the following is not a common cert that incident responders or SOC analysts get? Is it the ECIH, the LPT, or the GSEC? All right, so if you guessed LPT, you are correct. Again, that's a pen tester certification. So in this video, we just covered what an incident responder is. We talked about the interchangeability and the terminology of SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3, and incident responder or incident handler. And we talked about some common skills that you might need, as well as some of the common certs that you get. Again, Security Plus from CompTIA is probably the most common certification for this type of job role. We also talked about the salary ranges in the US, the UK, and India. Again, I want to stress that there is a cyber career path for SOC analyst, which will take you all the way through all the skills you need to be an incident responder later on in your career. So it'll take you SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3. And many, many people, there's a ton of testimonials out there. Many people, in fact, I recently had somebody from Israel who went through the SOC 1 path, was able to land a job, and is now going through the rest of the training for SOC 2 and SOC 3. So people are getting jobs after the training. It's not like a college degree where you go, you learn for 4 years or 6 years or something. And at the end of it, you're still working at McDonald's, right? This is helping you really build your hands-on skills. So I definitely recommend that if you're interested in this career path, you definitely check out the career path from Cybery.